welcome again to the Skillwork Forum. As always, my name is Tim. I'm usually joined by my partner, Brett, but today I've got a special guest here on the Skillwork Forum. We're going to have a little discussion with a good friend of mine. He's soon to be completing a very distinguished career in the United States Air Force, transitioning from active duty after 26 plus years. He's a former colleague of mine. We used to work together when we were just a bit younger. I'm going to introduce him in just a minute. Yeah, PJ, you are aging better than me. So he's currently he's an Air Force colonel. Good friend of mine, Colonel PJ Yuson. So PJ, hey, welcome to the Skillwork Forum, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Great. Thanks for having me, Tim. Looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, me too.
And you haven't aged a bit. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I have to go to the beauty shop once a week to keep this color, this silver. It's naturally as dark as yours, I think. But,
yes, it's silver highlights.
Yeah, we're getting a little older, but that's just experience. And that's really why I'm really interested to have you on today, PJ, because we served together in a prior life. You know, you've had a pretty distinguished Air Force career since there. Do you mind, before we get talking about our talk today, tell us a little bit about your military journey? It's really pretty interesting, right? Well, your background.
Sure. I'm originally from San Diego, California, and I went to undergrad at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. Go Cyclones. I did the ROTC thing, you know, just to kind of help pay for school as an out-of-state student. And I wasn't sure if I was going to make the Air Force a career or not. So, you know, I had to serve at least 4 years. Roughly 27 years later, here I am still on active duty. Started out as a weather guy where you and I met, and then I switched halfway through to become a foreign area officer where I learned Arabic and Afghan Dari. I've spent a lot of time working in embassies and really kind of helping foreign militaries where we've lived. And the nice thing is I was able to bring my family to a lot of overseas assignments. So it's kind of where I'm at right now. Within the last 6 months, I'm sure we're going to get into it, I ended up doing a DoD Skillbridge internship, which kind of helped me quite a bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's we were talking recently. PJ and I caught up again. We served together. I'm an ex-Navy guy. PJ's an Air Force guy. We served together uniquely in kind of a joint command and got to know each other through that time. And since then, I completed my military career, you know, and did a few things. And we started this company, Skillwork, where we're really focused on skill trades, everything to do with the skill trades, the industry, the businesses, and so forth. PJ and I were talking. You and I were talking recently, and I said, "Hey, what are you up to? What are you doing?" And you must be getting close to retirement. And you said, "Yeah, I'm a few months away." And what are you currently doing? And you were working at in your case, at a university, involved in this program, DoD program called Skillbridge. And I find it to be really interesting program, not only for departing military, but maybe some of the people who watch the Skillwork Forum that are really interested in hiring guys getting out of the military. So tell us a little bit about this program, Skillbridge, and, you know, why is it such an attractive thing, or why should it be an attractive thing to people in industry?
First of all, Skillbridge, like you mentioned, is a DoD-wide program. It's not just for the Air Force. And typically anybody getting ready to retire or separate from the military within their last 180 days on active duty, if your command supports it, that's the big caveat, they will let you go for several months to either intern at any type of company or organization, or even apprentice, at least with the skilled trade side. Really, the benefit for the company is you can kind of get a good idea of what military veterans bring to the table. Not just in terms of work ethic, but in terms of just life experience, formal education, especially on the technical skills side. That said, thanks to the Air Force, I've spent a lot of time in higher education, mostly as a student. The Air Force has really inculcated in me about being a lifelong learner. I've done a bunch of career inventories as I've been getting ready to retire. And for whatever reason, higher ed kept popping up, which I thought was kind of strange because I have really no desire to teach. But as I started to look into it, in my case, at a university, there's a lot of staff behind the scenes making a university work. So that's what I was interested in learning about.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Now, as far as the organization, the other benefit is you're essentially free labor. You're free chicken. So I ended up interning at the university. And at the end, I owed them a deliverable, basically a research project on a specific problem that the school was having with student retention. So During my time going from office to office at the university, I would ask employees like, hey, what's with the retention problem? What do you think? What are some possible fixes? And then I dug in to a bunch of the data that, quite frankly, they just didn't have time to do. I'd like to think that as much as I learned from the university, I also gave something back at the end as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. So, really what it is. So if you're an industry out there and many of our industry partners and our clients and us at Skillwork, we love to hire ex-military. First of all, my heart is for military and give them an opportunity. But selfishly, I know you and men and women like you, they bring just a work ethic, a get it done attitude. They're usually very smart, all the sort of things we're looking for. So this Skillbridge program, the DoD, I think, got this one right, because essentially what you just explained is they provide for your pay, benefits, and everything that you normally would get on active duty, while instead of going to your active duty job, you work for industry. And so even though PJ, in your case, you're working for a university, there's nothing saying it couldn't be somebody coming out as a aircraft maintainer or, somebody in the construction trades coming out and working for industry as well. So I think right now, most companies that are using this are probably in the defense industry, and they're getting guys that are coming in doing either research or project management. But I think this really untapped labor force of guys coming out of the military that are skilled tradesmen, that companies could use it as essentially a paid intern program.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, is that
absolutely? And for a lot of the skilled guys coming out, your vehicle mechanics, aircraft mechanics, they could still use this time to work in the civilian side of that industry and continue to get certifications through the program and through the company that they're working with. I just wanted a foot stomp, and you mentioned it. I'm still on active duty, and the university I worked for, they didn't pay me a penny. There's nothing that they owed me monetary wise. Now, the only, I guess, payback that the university owes the Department of Defense is that they owe me an interview. And it's kind of up to me what position I want to interview for, but there's no obligation for them to hire me either. Now, in a perfect world, in a perfect scenario, I should say, a service member will most likely intern. Maybe it's a good fit. They get along great. And then they just end up hiring that service member full time. That said, the military member is bringing skills and experience to the table before they walk into the internship.
Yeah, so it's kind of a try before you buy on both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely.
I mean, and so if you're out there and you're in the industry, you're like, hey, I need a mechanical electrical technician. I'm a food manufacturing plant. And a lot of times we talk to our clients in that space and they're like, well, I'd love to hire military guys, but this guy was a aircraft maintainer. And the idea is, well, let's bring them in, give them a few months. I guarantee you their aptitude and skills and work ethic will translate. And what have you got to lose? I mean, you bring them on board, you give them an opportunity to work there. Now, you have to give them some opportunity to gain some experience. And like PJ, you said, you got to give them an opportunity to maybe apply for a job. But I guarantee you most of our clients would be chomping at the bit to get a guy to stay on board after the intern program. So it's really a win-win scenario all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And selfishly, it was just a very good transition time to kind of not wear my uniform every day and just to kind of really see how a civilian organization runs, the way the leadership works, the differences, not necessarily worse than the military, but just the differences in leadership philosophies was very eye-opening for me to see. So I'd like to think that I'm entering whatever job I go into with my eyes wide open that, hey, this is different. And there's also things that are the same as well as far as bureaucracy. So it's win-win.
When I came out, I mean, I and it's funny too, PJ, you and I know when we say retire from the military, a lot of our civilian friends, they think retire or you're going to go sip Mai Tais down the beach. So for us, really, it is transition. Right. We've got a lot more to give. Most cases, 20, 30 more years of productive work ahead of us. So what have you seen? I mean, I often tell when I help a lot of military guys getting out, just the language, the words, the expressions you use and the acronym, all the acronyms.
Yeah. So I was fortunate to work at a university where there were very few, if any, people who had military experience, right? So for them, I had several people go, gosh, I have never worked with any veteran before in my life. What is the military like, right? And it made for some really interesting coffee conversations and water cooler conversations about what it's like moving every 2 years and, your kids going to 3 different high schools and stuff like that. But it's also just, that's part of the internship is learning their language. Depending on what industry you go into, that could take weeks, that could take months. But that is, I think, one of the beauties of the program is you're coming in theory, not understanding that particular work sector. And by the end of it, you've got a pretty good grasp, at least with the acronyms.
Yeah. I mean, it is a transition. I mean, I usually tell guys getting out of the military that, it takes a year realistically. And if you've got this 6-month off ramp, wow, you're ahead of the game already. So if somebody's listening to this and you're a company, you represent industry, maybe you're an HR person or you're you're responsible for hiring and staffing up your company. You may be asking out there, well, how do I find out about this? How do I get started? So we're going to set a link into the podcast here so you guys can go to click it. But from your experience, PJ, on the industry side of things, you know anything about what it would take if I'm Acme, sausage company? How do I go about getting into the program?
Okay, well, that link that you're going to put in there to the DoD Skillbridge site, it's a specific link for employers and for organizations looking for internships. Essentially, what it starts out with is you have to sign memorandum of understanding, which I basically outlined that, hey, you understand that you as the organization aren't going to pay the service member, but you do owe them an interview. You don't owe them a job. You don't owe the service member anything. It's really supposed to be more of an exchange, a win-win situation, like you said. The other part is you have to have a pretty, I wouldn't say detailed, but at least a very structured training plan of what you're going to have that service member do. Whether it's remote or hybrid or in office, you have to basically document how 8 hours a day is going to be spent for that, or how that service member is going to spend their 8-hour days. Now, you don't have to get down to the every hour, schedule lunches in what's called the training plan, but it's more of an overview. Like, okay, today you're going to learn the admissions process at a university. Tomorrow you're going to go over to financial aid and see what the regulatory laws are and ethics of awarding financial aid to students in need or even based on academic ability. That's just an example. So the first, like I said, the memorandum of understanding, which outlines what you do and don't owe the service member, and then a training plan, whether it's a 2-week internship or a 5-month internship.
Yeah, I looked a little bit at this too, PJ, and from an industry perspective, really, the hurdle is not that high. Honestly, you think anything government, bureaucracy, it's going to be really a pain, but it really seems pretty streamlined. This is a case where the DoD is trying to benefit the departing service members, of which there are roughly 200,000 or so a year that are departing military guys. That's a lot. It's a lot of guys getting out. So they're trying to provide an opportunity for them. So I always want to ask why. Why would DoD do this? And honestly, they care about their service members that are departing and they want to give opportunity to them. It helps them sell the military as a career because they're going to provide this on the back end. And why for industry is because, they want to make sure that their departing military members have a viable option once they get out. Many guys getting out of the military, and PJ, you're probably a percentage that has done very well in the Air Force. You're retiring after a distinguished career, you had advanced degrees, your opportunities may be more than that airman that worked for you that may be a 5-6 year guy, and he's just trying to get transitioned to another life. So it's great that the DoD is doing this, and they don't do everything perfect, surprisingly, but this one they got right. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And every year they come out with statistics, jobless rates for veterans getting out of the military. And it only serves the DoD good if they can show like, hey, we helped transition our members into civilian employment after the military.
Yeah, for sure. So is this just for active duty guys getting off active duty, or is it for, if you're just a veteran like I served 10 years ago, or is it just bound to?
It's absolutely just for active duty at this time. And it's within 180 days of the time that you separate from the military.
6 months, basically.
Right. So by the time you take your terminal leave and your transition, by the time you start using all your banked up leave at the end, a typical internship is, like I said, anywhere from 2 weeks to about 5 months. It depends. And that's the great thing too, is the service member has a lot of say as to how long the internship lasts.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this like if I'm an industry out there and I'm interested, I've got a stated objective to hire military guys. What better way to, connect, especially if somebody that's getting out soon, or maybe somebody that works for you has a son or daughter or cousin or nephew getting out soon. Really, it's you can work on this thing together to get them on board. All you have to show is that we're going to provide viable training opportunity. And by training, if you're in the skilled trades, by training, it means I'm going to give this person an opportunity to learn new equipment, learn how to translate your experience into the civilian sector. And at the end of this internship, I don't owe it to them, but I'm at least give them an opportunity for employment, right? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's no obligation to hire said military member, just an interview.
Yeah. So what, PJ, in your mind, why should industry out there desire to hire an ex-military guy?
Oh, geez. I'm being biased, right? Because I'm still,
I want you to be
still
biased.
on active duty right now.
And pretend you're talking about one of your airmen.
Okay. As far as one of my airmen, really, I think the biggest advantage to hiring military is just the life experience, right? So you're talking about, at least for the younger enlisted members, they're 4 or 5 years out of high school. And for many of them, they've had multiple combat deployments in that short amount of time. And they've seen the world. They've been around. And they've also worked with a hugely diverse population of people, which is the U.S. military, everybody from different backgrounds, religions. So when you talk about it seems like there's a big push, correct me if I'm wrong, in industry for having a diverse workforce.
Sure.
Right? You're already hiring military members that are used to working in that diverse type of environment.
That's great.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not just the experience per se, but the formal training that military members have received.
Yeah. Would you compare the training that, let's say, and people that aren't as familiar with the military, there's basically, two sets of folks in the military. There's enlisted and there's officers. If you think about it in the, in the industrial workplace, there's blue collar and management. I mean, that's broad over kind of a overgeneralization, but you think about the guys that come in the enlisted ranks, and they come straight out of usually high school, maybe some college, but generally have not finished college or post-secondary degree. And their education, the schools they go to, their training is second to none. They get a tremendous amount of training. And not only that, but the folks that we got a chance to serve with and if we're fortunate enough to lead, they're given a lot of responsibility at a young age. So you're bringing guys in that may only have 3, 4, 5 years experience with a tremendous amount of training and experience. And that's kind of what I always think of when I think of military as well.
Yeah. And I also think of, even for the younger members, like you mentioned, 3, 4, 5 years experience, the military is very big on training your replacement or trying to be gender neutral, the next man up, right? So if something happens to your supervisor, your frontline sergeant or something, you're ready to take his or her place. So to me, that's another aspect of the military that you can't quite put a price on, is the fact that leadership is just drilled into your head. Even if you're one of the lower ranking members, you're still expected to lead.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, PJ. And I think it's kind of overlooked. And a lot of times in the civilian world, people don't get a chance to lead until they've been in industry for quite some time. And the military, depending on what job you have and what branch of service in some cases, you get a lot of experience leading. So you're part of a team. You know how to get on board and do what it takes to get the mission done. And you're very good at leading. And, all of us that have been out there on the pointy end, depending on whether you were on a ship or, jumping out of an airplane, in your case, you learn how to get the job done and overcome obstacles, and I guess it's clear that you and I are pretty jaundiced and with respect to military guys, but I continue to be very big proponent of guys coming out of the military and great Americans like yourself that are going to be hitting the civilian workforce soon and going to have to start paying taxes and all that good. Well, you pay taxes now, but
yeah. But I would say the one thing I know I'm going to miss is just the camaraderie, as well as the coaching and mentoring of people. I always felt I got really good advice as a very young lieutenant, and it's, hey, you need to train your replacement. And I always remembered that. And that's been one of the more enjoyable parts of being in the military, is even if somebody doesn't directly work for me, really coaching them. I think that's something I'm going to miss for sure.
Well, I look back fondly, and when, just to date ourselves a little bit, you were a fairly young captain, Air Force captain, when we worked together, and you were pretty good at your job in those days too, even though about 15 years ago or so.
You were my supervisor, so you taught me stuff too. So.
Well, I know about that, but PJ, I'm so grateful for you coming on board. I so much appreciate your service to our country. You sacrificed a lot for your family, moved all over the place, and you represent the very best of who we are as a military. And I think that, our audience for sure really appreciates military. And I know they would want me to express thanks to you for your service. And we wish you nothing but great success as you cross over to the other side and bring some of that great mentoring, leadership, camaraderie with you. And a lot of organizations out there need it. So if you ever need a job in the skilled trades, or you want
there's the hook.
We'd love to have you on board, man. Meantime, again, just thank you so much for coming on board. We appreciate you very much. Anything, last words of wisdom you want to offer?
Oh, last words of wisdom. Time goes fast. Don't take time for granted. I mean, we could all make more money, right? But you can't get time back. And that's something, as I look back, it just flew. Yeah. It flew so fast. And then hanging out with cool guys like yourself, just people to laugh with and understand what we're going through. It's meant the world to me personally. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And speaking of flying, we actually got to fly a few missions together. So it was good days for sure.
Good times.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
So, PJ, give my best to your family. Thank you so much for being on board. Folks, until next time, we appreciate you listening to the Skillwork Forum. As always, come to skillwork.com if you want to learn more about us. We'll put the link. I won't, but smart people will put the link in the podcast to the Skillbridge. I hope you take advantage of it. And if you want to learn more about it, reach out to me, myself, and there's some other veterans here that work at Skillwork. We'd love to talk to you about it and give opportunities to great guys like Colonel PJ Yuson, and guys like
Navy,
an opportunity. So if he was in the Navy, he'd be a captain, but it's weird. You got to be, he's a colonel, and never mind. It's all the same thing, but you'd understand if you're out there and you were in the military. At any rate, thanks for joining us on Skillwork Forum. Until next time, talk to you later.